Right, my name is Kojo Yankson. Lots of good stuff ahead in the next 2 hours. Let's start with this one. Finance Minister is this afternoon meeting with MPs ahead of his appearance on Monday to present the mid-year budget review. Now, the minister will seek the views and concerns of MPs before he makes his presentation to ensure the budget is more inclusive and acceptable to all, considering the country's economic situation. We're going to take you there live shortly. Ahead of that, though, renowned economist Dr. Ishmael Yamson says government is yet to demonstrate commitment to expenditure cuts in spite of the distressing state of the economy. Now, the finance minister, who will on Monday present the mid-year budget statement, is expected to be heavy on meeting the conditions set by the International Monetary Fund following the $3 billion credit that has been extended to Ghana. Now, Dr. Yamson says government's attitude to expenditure before and after the IMF deal has not changed. He spoke to our very own George Biafe.
On raising revenue. I haven't heard emphatically from government what exactly they are going to do to cut expenditure, from which areas and by how much. We know that our problem has been that all over these years we have spent more than we have raised by way of revenue. The GRA revenue figure will show you that they have been growing around 17% over the last 5 years per annum. So if we are still in a crisis, then it means that the bigger issue is the expenditure that government undertakes. Because if you look at the graph, and we did it 3 days or so ago, since 1992, we've never run a balanced budget, not even to say that a balance with a surplus. So it means that we have consistently spent more than the revenue we raised. And there are programs that they describe as untouchable. So if you have a program that you are finding it difficult to fund, why can't you say, in the short term, let me review this program to see whether there are savings I can make? I don't believe that by 2025, this economy will be showing any great signs of full recovery.
Okay, now let's see if we can learn a little bit more about how Parliament has been handling their preparations for the budget review, which will be presented by the Finance Minister on Monday. Kweku Asante joins us on the line. He's our parliamentary correspondent. Kweku, well, Monday is a big day. It was postponed once, but of course, the expectation here is that the Finance Ministry will not be asking for more money. What exactly seems to be the reason why the Finance Minister is meeting with MPs ahead of what ought to be a pretty straightforward budget review?
Right, Kojo. So this is quite unprecedented in the annals of parliamentary history. Whenever government is coming to do a mid-year budget review, or even the budget itself, there is no set meeting between the finance minister and the entirety of members of parliament. If you want, the list of the meetings that happen is usually between the finance minister and the leadership on both sides to try and flesh out a few issues. But the Speaker of Parliament announced on the floor on Tuesday of a certain unprecedented agreement that had been reached by leadership on both sides of the House. So what is going to happen is that the finance minister, I can confirm that he has come into Parliament about 10 minutes ago. He has arrived in Parliament to meet with the members of Parliament. The meeting itself has not started. The House has taken a suspension. We expect that the minister will come in very shortly and they will go back to the floor to do that transaction. Understanding is that it is going to be a closed setting, so journalists will not be allowed in this meeting. But the kind of information we are picking up is that the finance ministry wants to avoid a gridlock that normally comes with this budget situation. They don't want a situation where they do a presentation on Monday, and if they introduce new policy, MPs will be hearing it for the first time, and they will be opposed to it. So government has finalized the mid-year budget review. The statement is ready, as we are told. They're coming to discuss the intricacies of this statement with members of parliament so that they can be on the same page. If MPs have concerns, they can feed it into the media budget review before the presentation on Monday. As of now, Kojo, we cannot confirm if the minister will be asking for further estimates. Normally, it is media budget review, and the minister may ask for more money because of the financials and how certain revenue measures have not performed that well. The ministry is unable to confirm that now, but we expect that this meeting will be in such a way that they are going to inform MPs whether there will be some introduction of new taxes at all. When Parliament resumed from its break fresh this time around, we were told by the majority chief whip that there were certain revenue measures that were being discussed that have not come yet, and so we expect all those conversations to be had. If you hear in the background, the bell is ringing. It is calling on all MPs to come to the floor now because the finance minister is around, so that they can go into this closed sitting, get into the details of the media budget review, and then try and see if they can resolve all outstanding issues before the presentation is made on Monday.
Well, you're going to have to stick around so you can update us on that. But in fact, don't go anywhere because this next story is something we could have your input on as well. Now, according to some, accusing someone of witchcraft could land you in jail for 5 years. That is the punishment contained in the amended Criminal Offences Act. Parliament today passed, yesterday, passed the bill to criminalize this accusation, naming or labeling of another person as a witch. The amendment also prohibits the practice by any person as a witch doctor or witch finder. This comes as a victory for persons like 90-year-old Ikuya Dente, who was lynched in the Savannah region in 2020 after she was accused of witchcraft. A few such incidents have since occurred, prompting this bill. Our parliamentary correspondent remains with us. Kweku Asante, talk us through this particular amendment. I understand that it's a result of a private member's action. Talk us through the journey it has taken to its passage yesterday.
So mainly this private member's bill is sponsored by 3 NDC MPs, Francis David, Member of Parliament for Medina, Dr. Godfred David Jasau, MP for Wa-East, and MP for Fusga, Teresa Ladia Ayamba. These NDC MPs, on the back of that 2020 incident, that gruesome video we all watched of some residents in the Savannah region stoning to death one Madame Ekuya Dente, decided that they had to put together this bill which will completely outlaw accusation of witchcraft in Ghana. So what this bill does is in chief to say that no one can accuse anybody of witchcraft at all. The moment you do that, you'll be falling foul of this law and you will go to jail up to 5 years. You can spend up to 5 years in jail just by accusing someone of being a witch or wizard. We also know that there are the Gambaga witch camps. There are a number of witch camps spread across the country where vulnerable women who are accused of witchcraft are put there. We have witch doctors and witch finders who attempt to so-called exorcise these women of witchcraft. That has also now been outlawed. And if you ever do 5 years or pay some penalty fine. So the law is now clear and is expected to go to the desk of the president pretty soon. I was speaking to the member of parliament for Francis Xavier, for Medina, Francis Xavier Susu, who had concerns that this situation was impugning the country's image and that this law was very important. He has been detailing what exactly the punishment regime is and how exactly that is very necessary. If you have that insert ready, you can listen to the MP for Medina, Francis Susu, who details what exactly is in this bill.
Yes, Speaker. Yes, I move that the Criminal Offences Amendment Bill 2022 be now read the third time. I so move.
Seconder.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second the motion.
Motion for the Criminal Offences Amendment Bill to be read the third time. Moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Honorable members.
An act to amend the Criminal Offences Act 1960, Act 29, to prohibit the practice by any person as a witch doctor or a witch finder, to proscribe the declaration, accusation, naming or labeling of another person as a witch, and for related matters.
Honorable members, Criminal Offences Amendment Bill 2022 is read the third time and passed.
I cannot hide my joy now. See, the reason is that for all the 539 persons who are locked up in witch camps across the country, they are looking forward to us to take some decisive step to dealing with this situation. This problem has lived with us for over 100 years. We've been struggling as to how to deal with it. And to the extent that this 8th Parliament has found it needful to pass this bill into law, for me, it's definitely going to bring about a very serious mind shift. It's going to correct a lot of ills in our society, and I am confident that we are just building a better society for ourselves. Well, the law simply says that henceforth nobody can practice as a witch doctor or a witch finder. And it will be also unlawful to accuse another person of witchcraft. If you are a community leader who supervises either the labeling of another person as a witch, or beating of the person, or lynching the person, as we have always been seeing, all of you will be in breach of this law.
We urge the President, knowing and gaining from our human rights records and performance globally so far, this is another opportunity for us to up our ranking in human rights. And I do believe that His Excellency the President is very concerned about our human rights profile. And so I'm confident that he will sign it immediately, as soon as possible, into law. Like I said, up north, I think that there's a cultural relationship, etc., about witchcraft and so on. And let me be clear that we are not prescribing witchcraft per se. We are not saying people shouldn't exercise their cultural, their religious, their spiritual beliefs. No. What we are saying is that you cannot accuse somebody of witchcraft. If you do, that's criminal. And so the law will take its course.
Right. Kweku, this is a fascinating, development. Francis Xavier Sosu, twice in a week, having a bill that he's sponsoring getting passed. But this particular one now makes it criminal for you to call someone a witch. I wonder if you've had the chance to look through the document. What if someone calls themselves a witch?
Criminalized. What the bill seeks to do is to prevent a situation where people are accused of witchcraft and then something bad happens to them. So you accuse someone of witchcraft in your community, you accuse them of being the reason why, for instance, there is no development in your community, then you proceed to lynch them. That the law criminalizes. So if you call yourself a witch and you say you are just a witch, that's fine. You can have that. In fact, you heard the Dr. Godfrey said that they are not legislating against witchcraft in itself, because you cannot make a law to ban something that is in the spiritual realm. What law they've made is to prohibit persons who call others witches or wizards and proceed to inflict harm on them. If you accuse someone of just being a witch alone, that will land you in jail up to 5 years. If you proceed to do what they did to Amadente in 2020, then you will find yourself in much more trouble in terms of what this law does. So you can you can tell yourself that you're a witch or a wizard. The law does not criminalize that. But as soon as you accuse someone of being a witch and proceed to harm them, then this law would deal with it.
Was there any dissent during the debate on this?
None at all. In fact, almost all MPs in unanimity agree that this is something that we have to pass, especially on the back of those videos we saw of Madame Ekiade. In fact, since then, a number of incidents have happened where in certain communities, certain women, vulnerable women, had been beaten, some of them killed, because they were accused of being witches. And the question MPs were asking is, you never hear anybody accuse Kojo Yangson's mother, for instance, of being a witch, because Kojo Yangson is a very popular person who's on TV. You never hear anybody accuse the speaker's mother of being a witch, because it's a very popular person who is well-to-do. It's almost always the very vulnerable people in society who are accused of being witches, and then the society proceeds to inflict harm on them. The law says you cannot do that now. Not only will you go to jail, you will pay compensation to the person that you proceeded to accuse them of witchcraft, you will pay for counseling, for instance, if the person has to go through counseling. And so this is what the law is seeking to do. And in the coming days, it's expected to land on the president's desk. And as soon as next week, the MP say they expect President Akufo-Addo to sign it into law.
5 years in prison could be your punishment if you utter the words "Uyebeyifo" to someone. Listen, Kweku, thank you so much for that update. We appreciate it. Now, of course, the bill's passage has also won the applause of the Christian Council, which is strongly advocating that pastors found culpable should face the law. Reverend Cyril Fayose is the General Secretary. Let's hear him.
I completely support the passage of the bill into law criminalizing witchcraft accusations. And so if you are a pastor and you go accusing people, mothers and grandmothers as witchcraft, I think the law should deal with you. I don't think you have to accuse someone of being a witchcraft if you want to help the person. If you want to deliver the person, you go ahead and pray and deal with the spirit that you think is possessing the person. If you rebuke a spirit of witchcraft in the person, you're not saying the person is a witch. There are two different things. But going around telling people that this particular person is a witch, your mother is a witch, your grandmother is a witch, that is the problem. And I think the bill is trying to curb that problem.
Now, the Communications Bureau of the National Democratic Congress in the Wa West constituency has expressed worry over a litany of projects started by the NPP government which are yet to be completed in that constituency. One of such projects is a number 10-seater toilet project, which were started in 2017. They've been abandoned by the contractors and the sites have been overtaken by weeds. Now, they are urging the government to take quick steps to complete these projects for use by the citizenry, or they will resort to demonstrations and other legal means to force the government to complete these projects. Joy News' Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafiq Salam reports from Dorimo in the Wa West District.
The press conference held by the National Democratic Congress NDC Wa West Constituency Communications Bureau centered on 3 projects whose construction have been on a hiatus for several years. First was the construction of 6 number toilet projects located in 6 communities in the constituency. The 10-seater toilet projects, who started in 2017, were supposed to be completed within 6 months. Almost 72 months after the commencement of the projects, they are yet to be completed. The contractors have abandoned the sites, which are now being overtaken by weeds. Olena Ababasa is the communications officer of the NDC in the Wa West constituency.
These communities include Dolimo, Siriri, Lasie, Ga, Wichao, and Naha. Even if they had coined it in one of their most appealing but good for nothing slogans, such as 1 year, 1 toilet, these projects would have been completed in 2022. Despite an ambitious promise made 7 years ago, the government's inability to complete these essential facilities is both disappointing and unacceptable.
Olina Ababasa noted that the government's broken promises have resulted in a host of consequences impacting the lives of the public.
The absence of inadequate sanitation facilities poses significant health risk, especially for children, the elderly, our vulnerable groups, and those with compromised immune systems. The few people that are able to have some private toilets are what others are relying on, but largely a lot of people go to the environs, defecate, what we call open defecation. And I am saying that in the SDG goals, this is one of the things that every government and the world over, even UNDP had a project on this, talking about open defecation, how it is not helping us. This is just our water, one of the water bodies in the community. The dam is just here. It means that anybody that comes to defecate around this place, the water, since we are at the upstream, the water will take it down there. And that means that we are going to have other challenges as far as health and sanitation is concerned.
They also call on the government to be transparent and provide a detailed explanation for the inexcusable delay and mismanagement that has led to this unacceptable situation.
Wouldn't the government save its face from such an unenviable record that the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government hasn't been able to complete even a single toilet facility after spending 7 years in office? The constituents of Wawes have waited long enough for the fulfillment of this essential and long overdue commitment. It is high time the government, through her operatives, most especially the DCE for Wawes, to take immediate and concrete steps to rectify this situation and prioritize the timely completion of these crucial facilities without any further delay.
They also use the opportunity to talk about other abandoned projects in the constituency, such as the Dormo E Block, the last year Tolu Senior High School projects, the Ward Dormo and Gabucho roads.
We urge the government to allocate the necessary resources, engage qualified professionals, and diligently work towards completing the construction of these toilets and many other abandoned projects, such as the Dormo E Block, the Lase Tulu SHS projects, the Ward Dormo Road, the Ga Wichau Road, the expansion of water from the water expansion project to communities in the West District, just to mention but a few. If this is not done, we are going to have series of press conferences, series of demonstrations, and series of other legal and lawful means of pressing home our demand. That is what we intend to do.
Meanwhile, District Chief Executive for West, Bada Dorothy, speaking to us off camera, denying that the projects have been abandoned, adding that plans are afoot to complete them with other ongoing projects.
And so while we have worked on those projects, those uncompleted projects, together with what they even need and they are not planned for, that is what I am saying, that when they are in the plan, we are still sourcing for funding to come and then complete them. So people entirely saying that we have abandoned them. That is where I say I will not say we have abandoned them. Plans are far advanced. Plans are in place to complete them.
Reporting for the news, Rafiq Salam, Durmo.
Now, in many homes and offices today, the lights are kept on even during the day when natural light ought to be depended on. Now, while many are investing in air conditioners rather than creating spaces in their buildings to allow free flow of air, these have become concerns of climate change advocates and building construction experts from the African continent at the 2023 Green Building Conference, which is ongoing in Accra. The environmentalists say the adoption of green buildings will save energy and help to mitigate climate change. There's more. Check out this report.
In many homes, today, the lights are kept on even during the day. The rooms are pitch dark and the openings are very small. Many have also resorted to using air conditioners in place of the creation of many openings on their buildings for artificial air. Advocates of green building are encouraging the use of natural ventilation to cool homes. By incorporating thoughtful architectural design and efficient ventilation strategies, they believe homeowners can enjoy refreshing breezes without relying solely on power-hungry air conditioning units. Director of the Green Building Conference, Professor Emmanuel Kwamna Bamfuaje, says by strategically designing living spaces and incorporating features like skylights and larger windows, homeowners can bathe their interiors in abundant natural light, positively impacting both the environment and their well-being.
We are trying to encourage those who are building to use more of these local materials, because the concrete block and the cement, they emit more of CO2, and because of that, the climate change is now affecting us. So for us to mitigate that or reduce that, we are encouraging people to use more of bricks. They can even use, yesterday we were in town and we bought coconut water, very scorchy weather, but yet the coconut water was cool. Why? Because of the material that is used in that coconut itself. So we are thinking of using even coconut fiber mesh to integrate with our other materials to see how we can, use it.
He wants architects to advise their clients when they consult them to work on their buildings.
The architects are involved in this aspect of it because they need to now think through about the design that they engage in, and they need to also advise the clients that these designs that they are doing should be things that are about green, which will go in a long way to help them. If you have a window that is very wide, at least in your building, you should have at least more than 50% of your building having openings. So it admits more of natural light in there. Some also decide to use sliding windows rather, and sliding windows admit 50% of natural air into that place. It is not the best. Ideally, if you are using louver blades, those ones admit 100% of air into the building. So architects need to rethink about their design. They need to also educate their clients that this is the way to go. The client should not look at always beauty, but look at the end of the day, how do I maintain my home so that it will not be more expensive. When you live in a home and you're always using air condition, look at the cost of electricity bill. Definitely, it will be better having those burdens.
Member of Parliament for Cape Coast North, Dr. Kwamna Mintanyako, indicated that a lot needs to be done to mitigate the effect of climate change.
It's been something that is very topical. A lot of more researchers are looking into how we can work around and ensure that this issue of climate change will be addressed. As we just rightly witnessed, one of the musicians in Ghana also embarked on a float or a procession regarding climate change initiatives. And if you look around the world, fires all over the place. In America, when you look at flood in Germany and all other, that means that we need to really critically assess what we can do to be able to ensure that this climate change in menace across the globe will come to a halt.
Ministers from South Africa, Ghana, and academics drawn from the African continent have been presenting papers and brainstorming on ways to improve how buildings are constructed on the African continent. Richard Kwejenyako, Joy News, Accra.
Right, time for a cup of tea. But when we come back, Dr. Sam Ankra wants to be president of Ghana. Why? He will tell you when we return from these messages in his very first ever political interview live on The Pulse. You're welcome back. Now, we're very honored this afternoon. A distinguished guest joins us. Dr. Sam Ankra has announced his intention to run for president in next year's general election. Now, Dr. Ankra is not a novice in the public space. He's an investment banker, a global business strategist, and development economist, as well as the founder and president of the Africa Investment Group. Now, he was also voted among the top 50 personalities on the African continent for their effort in driving investment towards Africa. During this candid discussion, we're going to explore the pressing challenges facing our nation and how Dr. Ankra believes that his unique approach and leadership can address them, from economic development to healthcare to education to foreign policy. Yeah, let me not give it all away. Let's welcome Dr. Sam Ankra to our election headquarters on The Pulse. Dr. Ankra, what a pleasure.
Thank you.
So, I mean, this is bold. President, why?
Everybody asked me this question. The challenge is, I'm not a politician. I've never wanted to be a politician, to be honest. I used to look at politicians differently, so I tend to shun away from it. But then I got back to Ghana a while ago when President Kufuor was in government. I followed a term sheet we prepared from Goldman Sachs, about $1 billion for road construction. So then, after coming to the country, I saw the development and what he intended to do and how the country was looking to move forward from that point. So I had an interest coming back and forth. A lot of recommendations will have been made in the process. it was heard, but it wasn't taken and implemented. I started writing articles in the newspapers. It was read, it wasn't taken. So I've been speaking to key people, and they go, it's the only way you can effect this kind of change you're looking for if you're in health affairs. But that requires a lot of sacrifice. And if you're ready for that, to lay yourself bare for, sacrifice yourself for the nation, then looking at what you have and what you know, we think you're very, very more than qualified to run for the position. So it's basically led by my passion to help people, to move people from where they are, upward mobility, which I don't actually see. And that's what actually moved me to take this bold step.
Now, this is indeed a bold step. You came to our studio alone today. I'm sure you have your team somewhere, but you want to move from being a person known for business, a person known for your achievements in the areas of investment, to a person that people will walk into a ballot box and choose over all alternatives. And not just people, but majority of the voters. How do you intend to go from where you are today to there in just a little over a year?
Well, if you're in business, and again, if you have to be successful in anything, you have to be somebody that has to look at situations, assess the situation, and build a strategy towards it. The key aspect of being an entrepreneur is having a vision and building an organization to drive the vision. So I believe in this sector too, having the right structures in place, bringing the right personnel on board, and having the right vision and the message for the people would clearly cut across. I mean, if you look at the current situation that we're in, and the musical chairs that had gone on this Fourth Republic, 30 years now we're in, it doesn't take a rocket science for everyone to know that we need qualified personnel, people who have the track record and the experience to run the nation. I always say academic work or theoretical work is 20%. Having practical aspect on the field is 80% of the job. And this is what I'm bringing to the table, bringing it back to help solve our problems that we're in.
We have investment bankers in government today. And, well, I don't think you are impressed by their performance. So what is it about you? What is different about you? What makes you a winning choice?
Excellent question. I mean, first of all, with the current system we have in place, it will be very difficult for any good apple to come out. What I mean by that is these structures we have are more or less contaminated centers. And that's the reason why I opted not to join any political party, but come from the outside and clean the system. To be honest, if they can look into your eyes and be very honest with you, they can tell you that there's a huge challenge in the system. Look at the amount of money they are spending, even to win parliamentary seats. It's mind-blowing. These people are even borrowing while they're in opposition. They are getting themselves incumbent under the name of the country, without not even in power.
Are you not going to end up spending even more? You want to be president.
So that is what I said. I said that if the person is self-made and accomplished something and is coming to sacrifice himself for this occasion, then that's a different ballgame altogether. But if we look at the current system where people are borrowing money, even opposition, to come to government with expectation that when they win, they will get the money back. By the time they will look for the money you've borrowed, there's about another year left for the election. And then they are looking for money to win the next election. This cycle cannot continue. The status quo needs to end. Somebody needs to distract it, break the system down, and rebuild it. And that's exactly what I'm looking to do.
So how do you intend to fund your campaign, being practical?
Well, as you rightly said, I've been in the business world. I've built a lot of good contacts and relationships within. So once taking the bold step, in our line of business, people even donate money for social impact projects with expectation of taking it back. So once people understand there's a genuine cause, somebody who they can trust, credible, they would want to be behind you and support you to get this done. So I'm basically doing this with friends within, and I believe that with the right message, with the right strategy,
will be able to help and save this nation.
Now, you come from the world of investment. So I'm assuming that your friends are investment people, which means they will be investing in you. What sort of payoffs can they expect?
Like I explained earlier, these are people that put funds into social impact projects with the expectation of not having it back. So it's a good cause. It's a charitable organization, a system that you're doing now. So I'm not going to, and let me say very clearly, get myself incumbent, because that's a system we're fighting now. That's one of the huge challenges that causing this nation to where it is now. So if I'm coming as a change agent, which I know I am, then I have to do things differently. We can't keep doing the same old things and expect different results. It can't work. And unfortunately, this has been the case. It's only a fool that keep taking the same destination, thinking they'll go the same route, thinking they'll go to different destinations. Look, Ghanaians have to now understand that the system that we have in place is not working until we disrupt it, change it, and rebuild. And that's exactly what I stand for, and that's what we want to do.
We're talking to Dr. Sam Ankra. He wants to be president, and he's telling us why. Let's talk about your vision. Maybe we can start from what is wrong with Ghana and how you intend to fix it.
Right. I was going to say everything is wrong with Ghana. However, some inroads had been made. However, it's not the kind of change we're looking for. It gets to a point in business where you have to rebuild yourself or else you go under. In politics, it's a different ballgame altogether. And the situation is even dire over here. You can't keep doing the same thing when the external environments are changing. I have a statement that says that you can't use analog to solve digital problems. The world is changing around us. Our systems has remained the same. There's no way we can catch up. If we're looking for the growth that this country needs and the backlog of young people coming through, which is frightening, we need to sit up and understand that the system needs to be broken down and rebuilt all the way from start. Okay. And that's exactly what I'm looking to do.
All right, let's get specific. So let's take the economy. How do you intend to fix it? We're with the IMF at the moment, and we're expected to be with them for a good few years. If you win the next election, you'll be winning, you'll be forming a government to run an IMF economy.
There's a challenge, absolutely, and without a doubt. However, that is the reason why you need an expert on the field to solve the problems. As we're sitting here, let me give you, for instance, an example. You have companies that goes into the forest, cut timber, heavy loads, drive them all the way, destroy roads that we've put so much investment in to the harbor and export it. And then turn around and import at 2,000% the price. You think it's right? And there's nothing being done about it? Even in the EU, there are protectionism laws. We need to build our fundamentals. We need to create within. We can't just keep doing the same thing again. We're importing tomatoes. We're importing almost everything. So until we have deliberate policies to tackle this head on, once and for all, by Ghanaians, within Ghana, we would be sitting here, and every time there's a fly around us, we're in trouble. Every time there's a rain, it comes direct to us. There's sunshine, it's coming directly to us. We need to build the buffers. We need to create a serious, strong economic model that speaks to our African experience. And let's be serious about it. And fortunately for us, we have the AFTA, which now gives us a much more bigger market. Let's start looking and creating wealth within, rather than always looking externally for help. As far as the IMF situation is concerned, I mean, the country has been committed. We will look at how we would lessen the front end and backload it, but build serious policies that would help us to generate and build economy within, rather than relying on the external.
I'm sure even as you explained this, you could hear how familiar it sounds. You're not the first person to identify these problems. Why should anyone believe that Dr. Sam Ankra is the one person who will actually be able to do something about a problem we all recognize?
Like I said to you, we have a system that ties our leaders even before they take government. If you are in power because somebody contributed towards you and the person is an important rise, you get into power, as soon as you start making a policy, he lifts his head, you go down. Look around. We have political millionaires, even billionaires in this country. There's no creative, innovative business millionaires in this country. It's all because politicians rely on certain segment of people, export, import, so they can make their cuts and run the nation. This is something that I'm saying we're going to put an end to it. The status quo, that things are done this way, is what I'm going to disrupt. And once these things are disrupted, getting in unencumbered, not liable to anybody, you would take the decisions that hurt but builds a nation. The decisions that would create opportunities for the young men coming through. This is what we're not having. There's a lot of talk, but there's no execution. Why? Because people's hands are tied and they're not honest about it. If they can be genuinely honest with you, they can look at your eyes and tell them, look, there's a problem. Because you rightly said, they know the problems, they know the challenges, but the execution, the implementation is where they get short because they find themselves wanting.
So what I'm hearing is a leaning towards protectionism. It would appear that you are quite keen on ensuring that we protect our natural resources. Things are done by Ghanaians, with Ghanaians, the money stays in Ghana. Is that your general approach to managing the economy?
Well, it's not 100% protectionism, but some element of it, because we need that to grow the economy. If everything comes in and out, then again, we fall back to the same old situation. I mean, let me tell you an example, give you a typical example. After the Second World War, Norway was a very, very poor country. They were just fishermen and farmers with nothing. Years down the line, Norway is one of the world's richest countries. What happened? Visionary leader. When they found oil, similar to what Ghana found, they told the Brits and the Americans, we are not going to allow you to come and take the resources and give us royalty as you're doing. What we require from you is to train, develop our people, give us a skill. We will do our own exploration to production, and we'll pay you from the sale of the product. That decision years down the line, they're not just exporting the product, they're exporting the technology. Everywhere in the world where you go, where there are smart, intelligent people doing serious things in the upstream or downstream oil business, they are Norwegians. And why did that happen? A leader thought through and developed a product that can suit his market. Why are we not doing the same?
Isn't it too late for us to do the same? We've already struck the deals. People are already drilling the oil. We're already taking a 10% royalty or whatever peanuts we agreed to. Isn't it too late?
It's never too late. If you still look at the Ghana map, where we have our minerals, I think my colleague, Professor Kwame Ado, has designed a map which shows there are a lot of resources still available in the country. Let's be wise. Let's start looking at it critically. What has gone is gone, but what is remaining needs to be guarded to create opportunity for these young people.
Right.
The amount of young men I see in the streets of Accra, the amount of graduates who have nothing to do is frightening. Let's be serious as a country for once and start addressing these timing bombs, these issues.
Let's talk about health. You are seeking the votes of men, women, and children in remote areas of our nation who are dying on the way to the hospital because it's too far away from where they live. There are far too few healthcare facilities and even fewer healthcare professionals to take care of the not so big population of Ghana. What's your solution?
Pretty simple. There are serious challenges that need to be addressed in the health sector, without a doubt. If you look around, there are many flows of Ghanaian health workers leaving the shores of the country. Why is it so? Because the economic situation is not favorable. I think the number one way of addressing this issue is creating a conducive environment where we maintain our brains. Because once we are draining our brains, we'll keep having these issues. And if people are well incentivized, there's no need for them to go. Home is home. So we need to first address the issue where there's not enough labor. First of all, if we look at resources. Once you have the labor, you have committed people who are motivated. It doesn't even matter the environment. They are able to provide health solutions at exactly where it is.
But don't we have trained healthcare professionals who are stuck at home, not able to get jobs?
Well, it goes back to exactly what I just said. Resources are not distributed evenly enough to accommodate these people. So although some of them may even be locally present, there's still not enough resources, i.e. pay them to be there. So we need to start evenly distributing our resources. And that will take us to corruption, that will take us to all the other things that we can discuss as we go along. But the first and foremost important aspect of solving our health issue is to be able to provide an environment that would prevent our health workers, experienced ones, the ones that are qualified, to leave our shores and get them to stay here and work.
What about infrastructure, health infrastructure?
Well, so once you've able to accommodate that, then I mean, the reason why, as to why Ghana is not even, or Accra, is not even a medical tourism is unbelievable. I personally believe there has to be a deliberate drive to bring in the private sector to run the up-end medical system and leave the low-end medical system to be run by government. By so doing, you free the funds available to be able to look after these remote areas.
Is that not what's happening anyway? And there are lots of private hospitals in Accra, in Ghana.
Well, I honestly speaking, I only see one very good private hospital, and I don't see many, because the environment, even in business, there's no enabling environment. There has to be deliberate policy to attract these kind of investments. If you're not doing it, people are not going to put their money in. So create the enabling environment, give the people the opportunity to come in, and once that happens, you free your funds to be able to address the remote areas, and then leave the high-end people that can afford to pay and go to the top-end hospitals. How many Ghanaians fly out to South Africa? How many Ghanaians fly out to England and to US for medical services? Clearly, if there's decent ones created locally, these people are going to patronize. And then that frees the government the room to be able to address the most pressing ones, as our family members who are in the remote part of the country.
Education, what's the Sam Ankra solution?
I personally believe strong, high-quality education is crucial for the survival of this nation. No half-heartedness. At the moment, we've gotten ourselves into this situation where everything is free in the secondary cycle, and it's not producing the quality, and that's scary.
Would you change that?
I think it needs to be reviewed.
How? In what way?
I believe that certain schools has to be privatized for top-end people to pay and go, and then government can raise money from there to be able to use for schools, day schools, not boarding schools, for people in local communities.
How will government raise money from a privatized school?
If for instance, if you float, say, Adisador College, if you float, say, what they call it, Fansipin, for old boys to purchase, that's raising money.
Right.
So once you are able to privatize these high-end schools, because which part of the world did you go? Did you go to boarding school for free? So if we privatize these boarding schools, whether partly or fully, we're able to raise money, build local schools for free in local communities for the people that can afford to go. And even that, you are going to get higher quality education, because giving free education, which is of no value, is more than not even given at all. So let's address the issue of quality. And how do we address the issue of quality? It's having serious investments into education. And how do we get serious investment into education? We can't keep borrowing. So what do? Privatize some of these ones, raise money for it. And this is the skill that I bring on the table as an investment banker, as a businessman.
Now, before the poor eat the rich, how are you going to get them jobs?
How are we going to get jobs? Again, it's a policy which hasn't been implemented, which I find wanting. How many architects do we have? How many accountants do we have? So we need to start building apprenticeship. Let's stop these YouTube, you boys, all this NAPCOP camping boys into camps and thinking you give them a skill that they can go out there and work. It's a fallacy. What I believe in is apprenticeship, qualified personnel. If you come and you're an architect, we'll put about 10 architects behind you, train and develop them. Government pay the salaries. That gives you the cash flow to run your business. 5 years or whatever years, they are out. They've also set themselves up. You pump apprentice to them. By so doing, you are permutating. And most of these guys are getting employment. You are creating, you are helping the person that is qualified to run his business because government is paying salary, so he's having personnel to work for free more or less, so that he can engineer his energies into other creativity ventures. You do that, you are giving skill to people, real skills to people. But to say, we're going to put kids somewhere 8 months or 7 months for a training program, which we don't even know what it is, and they come out, they should find a job, is a fallacy. Let's start building apprenticeship. Barbering shop, power people in there. Hairdressing shop, power people in there. Nails technicians, every aspect. Government have to develop policy to pay at least for these people for a period. And then once they also graduate, they set up and it keeps permutating. That will create a lot of opportunities, first of all, to start with. Then you can look at the other aspect of it, creating deliberate policies that would attract business and investors to do business. I mean, we can't keep talking about one district, one F. All these slogans when there's no real, tangible, deliberate policies on the ground to help people. Have you even tried registering a piece of land in Ghana before?
Yeah, difficult.
And if you go to the bank, what's the first thing they ask? Collateral. So if it's going to take me 20 years to register my land to get a title, and the bank is seeking for my title, that means I've failed. Besides, the banks are not even capitalized enough to be able to fund these projects. These are areas we need to start looking at. Look at how the GATT fund these 4 banks. Similar setups, fund, so that the banks will be well capitalized, then they can start looking at programs to fund. And again, create the environment where it will not be difficult to get the documents or the necessary approvals to get these things done. It's difficult at the moment. The business environment is not conducive enough. Create enabling environment. It's not just talk. These are practical things that need to be done.
Another area where it seems everybody knows the solution, but nobody wants to implement them, agriculture.
Again, our agriculture is outmoded. I'll go back again. You cannot solve digital problems with analog solutions. We can't, as it sits now, you cannot attract funding into it. First of all, there's land tenure issues and also rudiment style of farming and also no technology. Look at Israel, how they've advanced. So go to Israel, bring the experts to bring their technology, solve the land issues. The funding will chase it. These are basic things, as easy as it is, and yet it's not been done. But we need to take practical steps. Like I said, bring the technology, put the enabling environment in place, and the funding will chase these projects. It's as simple as that.
Is there a risk to employment numbers in the agriculture sector the more we infuse technology and mechanization?
Absolutely not. In fact, research even shows that the more advanced technological ways, the more people you employ, the more hands you get on these farms. So clearly, it's even going to create more skilled labor instead of just using the hoe and the axe and the cutlasses to be cutting and expecting us to have productivity. Let's be serious. Let's address issues head on. Let's look for the things that others have done and implement it. And have it with a free hand and making sure there's transparency in everything that we do. And once people understand that there's transparency and it's on merit, they will follow you. The people will buy into the vision. And you get success out of it. As it sits now, with no transparency, and we say we are doing this, and the suiting party faithfuls, we say we're buying tractors, and we go there, we look at our members and give it to them and all that kind of thing. Forget it. We were just joking. We're doing cosmetic work. The real issue is not addressed.
All right, let's talk about corruption. It's become topical recently. What will your presidency's approach to governance and corruption be? I mean, we already have the laws. I doubt that's the problem. How will your presidency ensure that public officers don't take advantage of a porous system?
Well, the laws are there, but how are the laws being addressed? I don't see any transparency and accountability bill. So we would make sure there's a transparency and accountability bill being put in place. We want to make sure that as soon as there's an investigation on any public, first of all, every public official has to declare their assets per the law. We cannot just cover it.
It's interesting you've mentioned that because, I mean, it's one of those things that's easier said than done. Let me demonstrate. How rich are you? What's your net worth?
I would say I'm very rich.
Okay, all right. Give us a figure.
Well, for the purpose of the discussion, okay, let's say I'm about $10 million rich.
You're worth about $30 million. Yeah, okay, you've made all of this through investments.
Yeah.
Okay, is this in...
Being very conservative.
Okay, so is this in, is this liquid?
Well, it's assets and liquid.
Assets and liquid.
Yeah.
Okay, what sort of breakdown do we have? What percentage assets, what percentage liquid?
I'll say 20% assets, 10% liquid.
Do you keep it in Ghana?
Well, yeah, not all in Ghana.
Okay, so you keep some of your resources outside the country?
Yeah.
But you want to govern this country?
Well, I mean, I have lived most part of my life in Ghana, and there's no laws that stops me from having investments abroad as it sits now. So obviously, as patriotic as I am, employing people and paying salaries and investing in local market, I still do have, because I live and grew up abroad, and I still have accounts abroad. But like I was saying, if you have to declare your assets, it's all about morality here. So you declare everything that you have. Every government or public worker has to declare assets. Now, if there are assets you have which you haven't declared, you've cut yourself out, because later on when we identify it as yours, it will be confiscated by the state. So it's in the interest of everybody to declare every asset. Then you make sure that when there is a complaint or an issue arises, whoever is in charge stay aside. Once they stay aside and there's investigation and the person is found culpable by the law, you as a government has to see to it, ensure to the end that a person deals with the strictest part of the law. And then if they have to be sentenced, again, you would make sure our government would guarantee that the public officer will have the full sentence. Plus, not that, wherever money that is involved, you pay plus interest.
Dr. Samankra, you've given our audience quite a lot to think about, which means from now on, every time you have a conversation about your aspirations, they'll have lots of questions to ask you. We appreciate your time with us this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And that's the man who would be president. Let's see how his campaign unfolds. Of course, you will get more updates from us right here. There's more coming up, including some jollof after these messages. Oh, there you are. Now, according to the latest West Africa Jollof Index put together by SBM Intelligence, at least 317 cedis is required to prepare a standard jollof rice dish for a family of 5. Now, this is an upward adjustment of more than 14% compared to the 277 cedis average cost at the beginning of the year. The dish continues to lose its place on the dining table as high ingredient cost compels individuals and parents to opt for cheaper meals. Check this out. Right, so you can see how the numbers have progressed throughout the month from January until now. The price taking a very steep hike between May and June 2013. In May, it would have cost you only about 277 cedis and 75 pesos to make jollof for 5 in Ghana. Now, we're hitting the dizzy heights of 317 cedis and 50 pesos. Bearing in mind that we started off at about 277.75 at the beginning of the year, going up to 286 cedis for February. It got a lot cheaper in March and April, but it has maintained those levels until May, when it started to shoot up. Right now, though, we are quite expensive compared to other countries. Now, let's see if we can learn a little bit more about this. We'll be speaking to Ikemesit Effiong, head of research, who has been looking at these numbers and doing some analysis. Smiling at my Very well appointed plate of jollof right here, a Kemesit. I wish I could invite you to join me, but a part of me is glad I can't because it's delicious and I want it all. So listen, talk us through your numbers. First of all, how have you put these figures together and what is driving the price up between the months of May and June? If you can unmute your microphone for us. There you go, there you go.
Sure, I have now. Yeah, so first of all, I should say it's a bit unfair that you're actually teasing me with a plate of Ghanaian jollof. I don't know if it's the best expression of Ghanaian hospitality, but I'll take you up on that whenever I happen to be in town. To the numbers and to the data, really, what the Jollof Index really does is that it tells a story of the overall economic condition situation, and the overall economic condition of whatever market we're tracking, right? And we do this here in Nigeria and Lagos right now, as well as where you are in Ghana, and really for the Ghana Jollof Index, right, you're looking at a weakening currency. More obviously, that will definitely impact prices because there are market operators in within the country who have to import key items, right, and currency risk will disproportionately impact them. A key thing which Ghana also shares with Nigeria, as well as much of West Africa where jollof is prepared, is the seasonality of key food items. Right now, all of the region, right, is in the rainy season. Now is not the best time where you would find, for example, tomatoes at a cost-effective, price point, right? So all of that, also impacts on the price. And the fact that seasonality is a factor is really a statement of the fact that, our supply chain management for agriculture is still at a very nascent level right now. Storage capacities both in Ghana and Nigeria, right, are pretty low. So you can't guarantee. So that gap means that you cannot guarantee all year round product availability at a competitive price point, right? Which means when it's harvest time, the food item that's been harvested is cheaper. When it isn't harvest time, obviously the price, goes up. Yeah, the final element, right, is the creeping insecurity. At least, we're beginning to notice this, right, with the numbers in Ghana, right, which is that, in certain food growing areas, there are elements of instability, which means that, some producers are not getting as much produce to market as you've seen in the past. And this is also an element which is present in Nigeria. It's a bit more pronounced in Nigeria than where you are, obviously, because our own security mix is a lot more complex, right? But it's still a factor also, right, in Ghana. So, putting all of this together means that plate in front of you, right, is a lot expensive, a lot more expensive now in May, than it was at the beginning of the year. And the outlook doesn't really indicate that, those trends might change for the better anytime soon.
I want you to stay with us because I'm very interested in how Ghana Jollof and Nigeria Jollof are sizing up against each other in terms of price points. But let me introduce two other guests. Abena Poku Abediako is the CEO of Chic Kitchen. And of course, this is a restaurant here in Accra. Wimo Victor Chinonso is from Imo State, and he is a jollof consumer from Nigeria. Good afternoon to you both. Now, I want to start with Abena Pokua. Now, every mouthful of jollof is bursting with flavor, especially the Ghanaian jollof. You can taste the tomatoes in there, you can taste the pepper, the onions, whatever meat was used to make it, you can taste that in the stock. So it just really pops in your mouth. But all that popping is money. Talk to us about the most expensive or the most, the ingredients that have increased the most in price for you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kojo. So the ingredient that has increased in the past months as a food business owner is, for jollof especially, is tomatoes and rice. You can see the rice price keeps changing, the tomato prices keep changing, and those are most of the key ingredients that are used to prepare this jollof rice. Yes.
All right. Tell us, by what percentages are you seeing these ingredients increasing? The tomatoes, for example.
So with the business, usually we have a price model and it keeps increasing and changing with the price change, so that we know how to price for our customers. And then I've noticed that beginning, we started selling, let's say we can sell a plate of jollof for, let's say, about 40 Ghana, 45, and then it kept changing with the price change of the tomato. Like tomato, as of now, you can get a bucket of tomatoes for like about 70, 80 Ghana, even more, depending on the market. But when we started, in the beginning, we could get about 40 Ghana. When you have a bucket, you can get 40, 50 Ghana a bucket. So it keeps changing. The price of the tomatoes keep changing. Sometimes it's because some people hoard and make sure they increase it later, but it's all waste in the end. So yes, we have increasing prices of tomatoes, the increasing prices of rice, sometimes, yes.
Right.
So that's what.
So in front of me, I have jollof, I have fried plantain, there's some coleslaw, and some very nicely grilled chicken, all right? According to our index, something like this would cost me almost 400 cedis to make for 5 people in a family, right? 377. But how much would this, a plate like this, cost in your restaurant?
Okay, so a plate like this will cost about 55 to 60, depends. Yeah, it depends on the products that the raw materials that you use. So if we decide to, it depends. Okay, so a plate like this will go for about 55 Ghana for a plate of jollof and chicken.
So let me ask you, how are your patrons responding to the steep increase in price?
Oh, we've got a lot of, some people complain a lot because of how the price keeps changing. And sometimes we'll have to maintain it and swallow the cost for a while before we put in a price change, just so that we can maintain the customers we have. So like the jollof rice we're talking about, beginning it was about 40, 45 Ghana. We had to maintain the price over about 2 months, because when we go to the market, we see the price change, we keep seeing changes, and our margins keep reducing, but we still have to maintain before we increase the prices, yes. So sometimes we have to swallow it for some time, and it's not good sometimes it's not good for the business, but when it gets to a point, we have to just increase it and for the customers to buy it just like that.
Let me bring in Nwemo Victor Chinonso. He's in Ino State. He loves Nigerian jollof, so, well, he has our sympathies. Nwemo, it's good to have you on the show. Tell us, are you seeing a similar price build-up on the Nigerian counterpart of this lovely dish?
Okay, good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm Victor. So yes, the price change on jollof list, I think it's the same across board. It's affecting every one of us based on different issues that happen in our country right now. You know, the difference in prices, the security issues, and those things tend to affect the prices of ingredients used to cook or make this food at this present time.
Tell us how the security issues are affecting the price build-up.
Most of the food, the grain issues, the grains, like the rice, are produced in the northern part of the country, and a lot of the security issues are happening at that part of the country. So when the issues are high, farmers do not go out to farm. So when there is no farming, there's no produce, and when there's no produce, there's lack, and people tend to hoard the remaining and sell very expensively when there's little.
So obviously this ends up being passed on to the consumer. Do you see an effect on the quality?
Yes. No, not really. We also have locally made rice for them. I can't try to get the name right now, but we have locally made rice, which is a bit. It's not cheaper, but it's about the same price. But the quality is also very good, and it's quite nutritious as much as the imported rice. So the quality is not really much of a problem.
Right. How do you think Nigeria succeeded in getting citizens to acquire the taste for the local rice when they were so used to the imports?
The local rice, naturally, they taste good, and because based on some research that we made by all the doctors around, it's known that the local rice is much more nutritious than the imported rice. So since it's more nutritious, Nigerians also like healthy food. So we actually go for those ones, and take them into.
That's a fascinating insight there from Victor, joining us from Imo State. Now, let me come back to our researcher who has provided us with these figures. So I mean, tell us, Ikemiset, did you discover that the price build-up in Nigeria is any different from that in Ghana? Are there different ingredients that are increasing in price compared to Ghana?
It's broadly the same ingredients, right? Tomatoes again being impacted by that seasonality.
Yeah.
Just as the chef said, right? That has been a factor again. One of the big items that has really moved is protein, and the protein sources. So for Nigeria, and you have chicken right in front of you.
I do, yes. Very delicious chicken right here.
Yeah, you should. Don't dive into it, right? I just asked.
Too late.
Yeah. So with the Nigerian index, we track with Turkey, right? And what we've noticed, the prices of turkey is a lot of turkeys, right? A lot of turkey here in Nigeria is imported in any case. So the most Nigerian households are basically priced out of that market. You'd only really see people really consume turkey with any form of regularity at like social functions, the burial, a wedding, a child dedication, or something of the sort, right? And what we've noticed in doing the Jollof Index in Nigeria, and we've been doing it for 6 years now, is this coping mechanism called source substitution, right? So we basically went from turkey to chicken. A lot more chicken is grown in Nigeria, but a lot of it is also imported. But the price of that has also shot up. Lots of Nigerians have gone to profiles and eggs. But we saw with, for example, with the Q1 Jollof Index, right, that the price of eggs, because of the particular strain of bird flu which was circulating around West Africa, really went up, right? And so now in many cases people are using cowhides, right? In Nigeria we call them formalin.
In Ghana we call it wele.
Okay, right. So we use wele right now, but a lot of Nigerians use that as a protein substitute. There are important health implications that also accrue with that. There are many medical professionals who say it's not really healthy or high-grade protein, as it were. But everyone wants a bit of protein, right, with their jollof, and so it's really hard, right, to deny that. Your guest who is in Imo State right now doesn't live far away from two of the markets where we track these food prices. We track them, which for the Nigerian Jollof Index, we track markets in 13 Nigerian cities. In Ghana for now, we just track prices in Accra and Kumasi, right? The single biggest jump in the Nigerian component of the Jollof Index actually occurred in the southeast. Right. Where he is at, where Imo State is in, and traditionally that has been the most price stable, part of the country, right, from a Jollof Index standpoint. And it's really just because that security situation is beginning to bite into, supply chains and logistics management. So not many people are able to get, things like turkey, for example, things like tomatoes to markets, because if you're familiar with, Nigerian security and domestic issues, right? There is a nascent separatist movement over there in the southeast that regularly organizes what are called sit-at-homes that are often violently enforced, right, in pockets of the southeast. So that's discouraged a lot of farmers, a lot of marketers, right, from moving to market. And in any case, even if they could move to market on Mondays, they can't take produce to market because of the sit-at-homes. So that has a multiplier effect, right, on the eventual price of commodities when they do come to market. And, you know, a lot of people who are suppliers just pricing that extra security or that extra transport or that extra production risk into the final end product. And so what you're finding is more people are cutting down on meals. There are many Nigerian families that are only doing 3 square meals, or in some cases even 2 square meals a day. Again, just to keep family budgets within that manageable threshold. I think the final point I'll mention is that we did research in 2019 that showed that the average Nigerian household spends 63% of its monthly income on food alone. So you can imagine with rising food prices, right, you know, how much more of, you know, the average family budget, right, you know, preparing things like jollof rice is increasingly wrecking, right, on budget here in Nigeria. I don't know if a similar situation is occurring in Ghana now because we haven't measured, those factors to anything, approaching that degree of rigor. But considering the challenging economic situations now, one of the first things that under pressure, households typically do is cut down on spending, and in many cases that gets manifested at the dinner table.
So bottom line, is jollof cheaper in Nigeria now than in Ghana?
It is slightly cheaper in Nigeria than in Ghana. Again, and the currency situation and also the logistics situation, right, in Ghana has just meant that. And another interesting thing that we found out is that, import duties, right, in Ghana have inched up, right, fairly recently. So that's also beginning to show itself in terms of, what's the final price point for tomatoes or for seasoning or for, any sort of component that has maybe, an export-import dynamic, right, is. So right now on a dollar-to-dollar basis, Nigerian jollof is slightly cheaper, right, than Ghanaian jollof, but not by much, it will comfort you to know. So, Ghana may flip the script, right? Come the next time we measure it.
Yeah, Ikemese, thank you for that. I want to give the final word now to our Ghanaian restaurant owner, Abna Pokua Bediako. Abna, so we've heard how the Nigerians are getting creative and substituting some of the products. Is that something that you might consider doing?
Ghanaians have this, they know what they want, they know what they expect. So making that change, with time, we can see what we can do about it. But as he said, they resorted to Wele. I can't imagine Ghana adding Wele to jollof to sell in the restaurants. I don't know how they will take it for now, but we'll see how we'll be able to. So usually, sometimes you will have to reduce the portions and then sell that to make something out of there.
Well, that's an option. People can still get the delicious jollof they love, but lose a little bit of weight.
Portions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lose a bit of weight while they're at it.
I think the reduced portions and the same taste but reduced portions.
That's a poignant note on which we can end this conversation. Abna Pokua Bediako, CEO of Chic Kitchen. We appreciate your time with us. And Ikemesit, always a pleasure to have you on our show. Thanks. Ikemesit Effiong is head of research at SBM Intelligence, which is in Lagos. All right, listen, I'm going to have to love you and leave you because I've got work to do here. But I won't leave you empty-handed. Go to myjoyonline.com for all of the big stories that are trending today. You can check them all out for yourself. Plus, coming up next on this, your favorite channel, is LTS. Have a wonderful weekend.